We are going to call this a September Christmas miracle because I have actually made a Christmas sweater and I have more than 1 week before Christmas in which to wear it. Hello, welcome to Show and Tell Meg. I'm Megan and I like to make things. I typically am not the best planner when it comes to holiday type items. I love holiday themed things, but I never really get into the swing of that holiday until, the month of. And then I cast on these projects and I find myself frantically trying to finish them during literally the busiest time of the year for me because I work in retail. So my projects don't always get to see that much use in the year that I make them. And so this year when I saw this sweater, I was immediately intrigued and I loved it and I knew that I wanted to make it. But I decided, you know what? Let's go for Christmas in July this year and I will try to make a video about making a Christmas sweater so that I actually have a Christmas sweater at Christmas. And then this particular year just ended up being just as hectic in the summer as I feel it's going to be in the winter. So it did not happen in July. This sweater took me much, much longer than I anticipated that it was going to, but we are here now. I started this in July and I have finished it in August, and now I am releasing it and filming it in September. So we're going to call this Christmas in September because why not? And just for the record, I am not one of those like, yay, Christmas all the time people. Not at all. I am much more of a fall person, but this is just when this is happening because this sweater deserves its own moment. It is crazy. So this sweater is the Christmas Lights sweater, which is a free pattern from Hobbii. And I think I saw it on their Instagram or something, or their Facebook, something like that. I was scrolling by and I saw this sweater and I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous and I must have it. It's one of those things that it turned into a bit of a stash bust. I already had this color green. It's one of my favorite colors of green. It is called Parakeet. And for this, I used Hobbii Friends Cotton 8/8. So this is like the DK weight, 100% cotton. It's nice and soft. It's pretty heavy because it is cotton, but it's a nice yarn. I bought this in this DK weight and in the fingering weight, and I'm making projects with both. But yeah, this is the first time I have actually gotten around to using it. And so since I had that and I saw that all I needed to complete this was a couple of these metallic skeins, that was too much temptation. And so I purchased the metallic skeins and I made do with some more stash that I had as well. But I did get a couple of skeins to make this, but it's just worth it. It was worth it. I absolutely had to make this sweater. So believe it or not, this is actually my first ever crocheted garment. I have made hats, scarves, tons of amigurumi. Like before I had this channel for years, I was just constantly slapping out all kinds of crocheted amigurumi and things like that. Crochet was just my constant go-to, particularly for gifts. And because I knitted as well, I really kind of never saw the draw of crocheting a garment. I am just not one who has ever really felt that the boho aesthetic was me. Like I appreciate that style, the kind of hippie chic crocheted lace, dusters and sweaters and I don't know, just all those kinds of things. They're lovely, but I just feel like an imposter if I try to wear something like that. It is just not me. Since I know how to knit and I enjoy knitted sweaters, I never really saw the point in crocheting one until recently. I'm just kind of like, I've never really made a crocheted garment to wear. So I want to do that. And then I saw this and I knew that this was what must be. If you look at the Hobbii sweater, this is a free pattern. So I feel no qualms in explaining the mechanics of it to you. It is designed to be very oversized. It is also designed to be drop shoulder. And those are two things that I really don't like. Since this is a crocheted garment, I knew that I personally had the skills to be able to kind of eyeball the shape that I needed instead of it being drop shoulder. So I just dove right in. I cast on or excuse me, chained the number of stitches for the front for the size down from what the recommended size was for me, because I didn't want it to be oversized. And that was for the back piece. So my back piece is slightly narrower. And then I knew I was going to have to make up a little bit once I got that on and I could see how wide it was. So I did the regular cast on for the size for myself. I think I did a size large for the back and then like extra large for the front. Something like that. They were slightly different, but I knew it wasn't going to matter because I'm seaming them together. I did everything according to plan until I got to the underarm section. And at that point, I kind of looked up online what the shape should look like. And I just started decreasing. This is all double crochets. And so when I got to this section, I started doing double crochets together and like half double crochets to sort of angle things, and then just held it up to myself and saw where it needed to have a neckline, etc. And here we are. This is I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but crochet is just, it clicks in my brain so much easier than knitting does. Like I can't plan knitting projects like that at all. Like it just does not compute. But crochet, because it's just one stitch you're working with and I can kind of fudge things as I go, I can make it the shape that I want it to be. So here we are, and it worked out great. For the sleeve, at first I was contemplating doing this fitted as well and doing it 3/4 sleeve, but I don't know. It's like, this is not in any way going to be a practical sweater. Why not just make what feels like big ridiculous sleeves? And to be perfectly frank, when I was making these and holding them up to my arm, I thought they were going to be so much bigger than this, but they really don't look that ridiculous when I wear them on here and do this. I mean, they're still big. Like my arm is not that wide. They are kind of a bishop sleeve, but they could have gone bigger in my opinion. So if you want ridiculous sleeves, then just keep that in mind. Maybe go a little wider. But I did the sleeves just as the pattern told me to. And then once I got to this area again, I made the kind of sleeve cap shape, which if you have sewn anything, I just kind of looked at the shape of the sewing pattern, figured out how deep it needed to be, and then went in and up, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But yeah, so I eyeballed that as well. The only area that it got to be a little squidgy is lining up the lines of Christmas lights. It doesn't match right here and I didn't want to fudge that, so it doesn't really bother me that much. You really kind of can't tell when I wear it, actually, now that I look at that mess. So that's pretty cool. And I did have to seam all of this together, and in the process of seaming, I did kind of embroider over this connection because this was green in the middle, and I did that under the sleeves as well. No idea. Yeah, you can see that. So I made it continuous all the way around. It was a stupid amount of finishing work, but I am very happy with how this turned out. What I was saying was going to be my Carmen Miranda level sleeves are really not that crazy, but they're fun. They're definitely bigger than any other kind of sweater I've ever made before. Let's talk about the real draw of this sweater, and that would be all of these metallic lights. As you can see, these are 3D. I've been calling them metallic. But these are made with Hobbii Flash It yarn. And this is a polyester yarn that has this metallic strand woven through. It's a chainette style. And so it's woven quite a bit in there. If my phone would focus, that would be really nice. But yeah, it's very metallic. And when I was planning this project, I knew that I had some metallic yarn. So this gold is actually from a sweater that I thrifted. When I first learned that you could thrift sweaters and unravel them, this was one of the first ones I found that was a chain style construction that I could take it apart and unravel it. So I did. This was a Ralph Lauren sweater, and it was a rayon poly metallic yarn. And this stuff was a nightmare. If you know anything about rayon yarn, like working with rayon, it does not cling to anything. It is extremely slick, and so it just wants to slide off of itself. And so when this was unraveling, it unraveled all the way. This was a 4-ply yarn, but it's just 4 strands of yarn that I hold together. It's four individual strands of this, and I try to hold it together as one yarn. So I finally was like, oh my gosh, I can use some of that gold rayon yarn for these, and then I don't have to buy as many skeins of the flash it, because this was like $9 a skein, so it wasn't cheap, but I just didn't want to have to buy more. The pattern shows this with like 5 or 6 different colors of this yarn, but I was just not diving in quite that deep, especially when I had this metallic. So I pulled this out and decided this is what was going to be for the gold. And then I went with just red, purple, and blue for the other colors. I did originally plan on using a different type of yarn so that I would have more colors that I thought I had in my stash, and it seems that maybe I gave it away before this because I couldn't find it anywhere. And I don't know if that's because of the moving or what, but it's another like deep stash yarn that it would have been nice to use, and it had like white metallic, and I had green metallic and pink. I'm perfectly happy though with how this came out. I just accepted that I wasn't going to find that other yarn. It was like Caron Simply Soft Party, which I never use. I really dislike Caron Simply Soft. But yeah, so with these colors, I think that it made it kind of a primary color, except that the purple made it seem a little more legit, like lights, you know? So I'm totally happy with the color array of my lights that I have. And part of what made this sweater take so long is these lights. But I mean, what are you going to do? That's kind of the entire point of this entire sweater, right? So out of the 3 skeins of the Flash It yarn that I ordered, this is all that is left. And I feel like that's worth mentioning. And I did note this on my Ravelry project of this. These come on those cardboard tubes because it likes to unravel. It's, you know, they always do that with the novelty kind of yarns, right? So when I saw that there was very little left, I was actually afraid I wasn't going to have enough blue to even finish, but I did, just barely. And so when it was done, I took the yarn off of the skein roller and then I weighed them. And all of these are just a couple of grams a piece. So if you make the large-ish size of this sweater, you will use an entire skein of each of these. I came extremely close to technically needing more. And I feel like that's kind of hard. In my case, I wasn't going to know that because I was using fewer colors than what they recommend. They recommend like 5 or 6 different colors. I was using 4. And, you know, the gold, I have plenty of the gold. I could have, you know, I have an entire sweater worth of the gold. So I could have done this entire thing in gold. It wouldn't have been as fun. Just with the way that I striped these, this ended up being all that was left. So in a way, that's extremely exciting because what the heck am I going to do with this random chainette metallic yarn if I don't use it in this sweater, right? So I just have a little bit left. And the way that this sweater is constructed is using bobble stitches. You start at the bottom with the ribbing, and then you do a few rows of double crochet, and then on the back side, you do the bobble stitches. And so they end up looking like this. And this was what Hobbii recommended on finishing the inside. They recommended that you just cut each yarn and tie it into a knot. And that was effective, right? I was able to just change colors easily and not have all of these pieces of yarn stranding. And then I would have definitely run out of yarn if I was trying to strand this. However, this yarn is extremely prone to unraveling. The metallic yarn, because it's a chainette, I don't even know if you can see that. This is what the yarn is made up of, these threads. And so as I was finishing this off, this is what everything inside of this sweater looked like. I did take a picture for Instagram when I was doing the finishing on this, and it was absolute chaos inside of this sweater. And the unfortunate thing was, because this yarn likes to unravel, quite a few of these bobble stitches ended up unraveling down to the knot that I had made. So the finishing process of this sweater, just to make sure that the entire thing wasn't going to unravel and I would have all of these holes where the lights once were, I went through an entire bottle of Fray Check. Oh my gosh, I just found another end I forgot to weave in. So the inside of this sweater looks like this, which is insane, but this is absolutely organized and tame in comparison to what this looked like after I sewed everything together. And actually, I didn't sew this together. I chose to chain stitch it together. Every single one of these baubles had to have this snipped off and then have fray check put on the edges just to prevent it from unraveling like that any further. And some of, oh gosh, and every time I come in here, I mean, I'm not kidding you. Look at this. I had to do all of these, and yet I still have one right here. Every time I look at it, there's another one that I have to put on. See, this is, let's see, can you even see that? See, this is what it does. It completely unravels, and then all of this gets tangled with all of the other ones. And then you end up with this insanity that I had to cut off of this thing. And so that's definitely my biggest tip. If you decide to make this sweater, is get yourself a double pack of fray check. And if you are unfamiliar with fray check, it's sort of like super glue for fabric and yarn. It doesn't make it hard like super glue completely. I mean, it's definitely harder than it would have been, but it just makes all the threads stop. It makes them quit unraveling. It makes them stick to the ones next to it. And that is exactly what you need for this absolute chaos that is this sweater. Before I lose that one, I'm going to do it right now. So I sat for hours, like literal hours. I can't even remember how many evenings it was. And what I had to do, snip this off, put this in my ever-growing pile of crazy ends, and then take the fray check and just dab that around the perimeter of the chainette yarn. Very hard to do this holding it up like this, but okay. Crisis averted. But yeah, fray check. This will mask all level of sins with all kinds of things. Oh my gosh, here's another one. How is it that all the ones I forgot are blue? That seems kind of odd. Okay, for the moment, we're glued. So if we look down on the first section here, notice how short these tails are, some of which are non-existent. Like this one completely unraveled, and so I had to put a lot of fray check just directly on the knot and then hope that it doesn't unravel. So that is a little disconcerting. I am one who likes to make sure that my projects are good to go as far as wearing them, that it's not going to be a problem later. And actually, I just noticed this one, it did unravel the knot. So keep that in mind. If you're going to make this sweater, definitely use the fray check and use it early. Don't let them get down to little nubbins like this, because I'm now trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to be able to do to secure that, because any tug and that light is gone. But other than that, it was honestly a pretty enjoyable project. But if you have ever made anything with this many baubles that were in this many colors, then you'll know how long this took. Like doing the couple of rows of double crochet, no problem whatsoever, real quick, back and forth. And then you get to the light row. And not only are you doing baubles, like you're going 4 stitches in the green, then grabbing your next bauble color, making the bauble, stopping, cutting, tying that off, continuing, and doing another 4 stitches and then a bauble, and 4 stitches and a bauble. Then you go back and you do a single crochet row of the darker green, which is bottle green, and then on the pass back, you do front post crochet. It's not difficult at all, but it just makes it so much more time consuming because you're having to go through different sections of the stitch than you normally would. Sorry, this is just making me really nervous. I'm going to tie this thing right now. Yeah, this is why I don't like these kinds of novelty yarns, generally speaking. Like I would never do something like this for anything I would be wearing more often than a couple times a year. Okay, so we have a knot now. And yeah, so it's just things like that that I'm constantly finding that I'm having to deal with after the fact. And so that kind of sucks. But inside in general, I got it to be pretty clean. This was an absolute million ends that I had to weave in. I had bought 2 10-packs of the green yarn, and I have this much left. So out of 20 skeins of this, I have 2 1/4 or something like that. And then I have like another quarter or half. It's not a half, it's a quarter or a third of the second skein of the bottle green. So if you are a Hobbii shopper, you'll know that this yarn is not expensive. And so that sounds like it would be incredibly expensive to make this. It wasn't. Like, those skeins are less than $2 a piece usually when I get them on sale. So in general, this is not an expensive project to make unless you were getting all of those different colors of the flash it yarn. The other thing that I came up that at the time was a bigger problem was this gold that I used, that rayon. I have triple knotted every single one of these, and the knots want to back out on themselves. They just would slide undone. So I had to make sure that I cut the strings pretty long. That's why those have much longer tails than the other colors. And then even while I was doing the finishing with the fray check, I noticed them backing out. So I went through and I fray checked the knot of every single one of the gold. So, this was one of those exercises in making it work. And it did work. Like, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's ridiculous and way fun. But getting there was definitely a an exercise in devotion to the end result. After I got everything assembled, the only thing that I had to go back and do was the neckline. And I just did a couple of rows of front and back post double crochet like you do for the ribbing so that it matches, because I didn't want it, I made it where it was a crew neck, but I didn't want it to be incredibly tight. So I couldn't go higher than like 2 rows of that. I did also adjust the length of this. I made it more the cropped length that I prefer. I like things to hit like right at the waist. And it's not like tight, but it's not loose either. I just don't like oversized things. I feel dumpy if things don't at least show something of a waist on me. And I do know that this yarn is going to grow as I wear it. Like, even just since putting this on so much, it is much looser here than it was initially. And look, I wore my ModCloth elf skirt to show this off to full extent, right? But yeah, I know that this yarn is going to grow. It's 100% cotton. It's also quite heavy. I used like 19 skeins of this yarn, and they're 50 grams a piece. So it's got some weight to it. Interestingly though, when you're holding it, not wearing it, you're like, holy cow, this thing's heavy. But then once I put it on, it's really not that bad. Like, it's just a cotton sweater. But because this is DK, it's a bit heavy. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Because I live in Florida, that is why I did this in cotton. That is what's recommended from Hobbii. So interestingly, this is one of, very few things that I have made with the recommended yarn, but it's quite heavy and it does make it more breathable though. And so for me, I think it's worth it to have that little bit of a physical weight, because even with me sitting here, it's September. It's, I don't know, 89 degrees outside right now, and I did crank the air down a couple of degrees to film this video, but I'm not overheating. Like, my face isn't turning red like it normally would be if I was wearing a sweater in the summer. So yeah, it's certainly not something that I'm going to be wearing outside in the heat, but once things cool down and it's in like the 70s all the time, I feel like I could get away with wearing this and not want to rip it off. Which, that is why I pretty much make cardigans all the time, because of the difference in hot and cold here. When the heaters start kicking in, because we get into like the 60s outside, people turn the heat on, and when I go inside, I just want to die. I can't wear a pullover sweater very often at all. So I haven't made very many. But the fact that this one is crocheted and it's cotton, crochet has more space in between the stitches. So I'm going to see how it goes. I think it just from how it feels right now, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to work out pretty well for being in Florida. So that is my Christmas sweater all the way in September. And I feel like the advantage of me showing you this now is now that if you want to make your own Christmas light sweater, you have enough time to do it. You have enough time to get the yarn if you don't have it and to make it. So, give yourself a couple of months. That's how long it took me, unexpectedly. But I think it's worth it. I think it was a lot of fun. I am excited to wear it in the season, right? I'm going to wear it a couple of times at least throughout December, as long as it's not, incredibly hot. I think it came out really fun. I am super thrilled with the changes that I made. And just know, like in crochet, those changes are so easy to make. And it's not as big of a deal if the shape doesn't come out the way that you wanted, like in knitting. In knitting, if I had done this and it wasn't the right shape, I would have had to go all the way back and it would have been who knows how much longer of work. It's because you only have one stitch you're working with, you can kind of fudge it and you can just kind of try something out. These stitches are large. And so to just go back and forth a bit, make it how you want. I mean, I'm looking at this now and my shoulders are exactly where I wanted them to be. So I am incredibly happy with how this came out. It's my first ever crocheted garment and it could not have turned out better, in my opinion. So that is my sweater. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did like this, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to stick around and see other things that I make in the future. Obviously, my Christmas sweater is done, but I will make other seasonal things as the time gets closer. And if this has inspired you to make one too, let me know in the comments because I would love to see other people make these. I think it's really fun. I think the whole concept of it is just awesome. So if you also need a novelty Christmas lights sweater, I'm going to link everything below and you can find all the information that you need there. So until next time, I'm going to take off my Christmas and transition into fall, which is actually my favorite season of the year. And my Christmas sweater will see you a little later in the year. If you do decide to make the sweater, I hope that these tips were helpful and that your Christmas lights don't unravel.